The concrete beneath Maya Chen's bare feet had grown cold. As the October wind swept through the abandoned subway tunnel, she pressed her back against the crumbling tile wall, listening for the familiar sounds of scavenger boots echoing through the darkness. 3 days without food had left her weakened, but her engineer's mind still calculated distances and escape routes with mechanical precision. Above ground, Detroit's skeletal remains stretched like broken teeth against a perpetually gray sky. The Great Collapse had claimed most major cities 15 years ago, leaving only pockets of survivors fighting over scraps of the old world. Maya had been 12 when the power grids failed globally, when the climate refugees overwhelmed every remaining safe zone, when civilization finally buckled under its own weight. A low growl reverberated through the tunnel, causing Maya to freeze. The sound was wrong to deep, to intelligent. In all her years navigating the underground passages, she'd encountered plenty of feral dogs and rats, but this was different. This was deliberate. Yellow eyes materialized from the darkness, reflecting. What little light filtered down from the street grates above. A massive wolf stepped into view, its silver gray coat unmarked by the urban decay surrounding them. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Wolves had been extinct in Michigan for over a century. Yet here one stood, studying her with an unsettling intelligence. The wolf approached slowly, each paw placed with careful consideration. Maya's survival instinct screamed at her to run, but something in those ancient eyes held her transfixed. When the creature was close enough for her to feel its warm breath, it did something unprecedented. It sat down and tilted its head, as if waiting for her response to an unspoken question. "I don't understand," Maya whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. The wolf's ears perked forward, and it made a soft whining sound that seemed almost sympathetic. It rose gracefully and began walking deeper into the tunnel, pausing every few steps to look back at her with what could only be described as an invitation. Against every rational thought, Maya followed. The wolf led her through passages she'd never explored, past rusted train cars and collapsed sections of ceiling. The air grew warmer as they descended, and Maya noticed bioluminescent patches along the walls, clearly artificial, but unlike any technology she'd seen before. They emerged into a vast cavern that shouldn't have existed beneath Detroit. The space hummed with quiet energy, and Maya realized she was looking at a fully functional ecosystem. Trees grew in impossible arrangements, their roots intertwining with what appeared to be organic circuits. Water flowed in gentle streams between raised garden beds where vegetables and fruits grew in abundance. But it was the inhabitants that stopped Maya's heart. Dozens of animals moved through the space with purpose: wolves, bears, mountain lions, and species she couldn't immediately identify. All of them apex predators, all of them watching her with the same intelligent gaze as her guide. An elderly man emerged from behind a cluster of fruit trees, his movements slow but confident. He wore simple clothes that looked handmade, and his weathered face carried an expression of gentle surprise. "Welcome," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent Maya couldn't place. "I'm Dr. Henning Larson. I was beginning to think Akela here would never find someone suitable." He gestured to the wolf who had led her here. "You must be very special indeed. They don't usually choose engineers." Maya stared at him, then at the impossible garden, then at the predators who continued their activities as if her presence was perfectly natural. "Shoes?" she managed to ask. Dr. Larson smiled sadly. "My dear, you've just been invited into humanity's final sanctuary. The question now is whether you're ready to learn why only some of us were deemed worth saving." Dr. Larson's workshop occupied a natural alcove within the cavern, its walls lined with journals, sketches, and devices that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements seamlessly. Maya sat on a stool crafted from living wood, watching as Akela the wolf settled beside her like a devoted guardian. "I was a behavioral ecologist before the collapse," Larson began, his weathered hands carefully tending to a plant whose leaves pulsed with soft light. "Worked for the Copenhagen Zoo, studying predator intelligence and social structures. When the climate wars started, I thought my research would die with civilization. I never imagined it would become the foundation for humanity's next chapter." Maya touched one of the glowing leaves, marveling at its warm texture. "How is any of this possible? The animals, This place, it defies everything I know about biology and engineering. That's because you're thinking like a human from the old world, came a voice from behind them. Maya turned to see a woman approaching, her dark skin bearing intricate tattoos that seemed to shift in the bioluminescent light. I'm Dr. Keiko Tanaka, formerly of Tokyo University's AI Research Division. What you're seeing is the result of a collaboration between human knowledge and something far more ancient. Dr. Tanaka gestured toward a section of the cavern, where Maya could see what looked like a massive tree, its trunk easily 50 feet in diameter. But as her eyes adjusted, she realized it wasn't entirely organic. Threads of what appeared to be fiber optic cables wove through its bark, pulsing with data streams. We call it the Nexus, Tanaka continued. It's part biological neural network, part quantum computer. But here's what makes it truly remarkable: it wasn't built by us. We were chosen to help maintain it. A third figure emerged from the shadows. A young man who couldn't have been much older than Maya herself. His movements were fluid, almost predatory, and she noticed several small animals following in his wake: a red fox, a hawk perched on his shoulder, and what appeared to be a juvenile lynx. This is Marcus Rivera, Larson said. He was one of the first to be chosen, about 8 years ago. He was only 14, living in the ruins of Phoenix when a pack of coyotes brought him to a similar sanctuary. There, Marcus nodded to Maya, his dark eyes holding the same unsettling intelligence she'd seen in the animals. The Nexus connects sanctuaries across the globe, he explained, his voice carrying a slight harmonic quality that seemed to resonate with the creatures around him. What you're experiencing here is happening simultaneously in the Amazon rainforest, the Siberian wilderness, the Australian outback, and dozens of other locations. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You're talking about a global network. But who built it? How long has it been operating? Dr. Tanaka exchanged glances with her colleagues. That's where the story becomes difficult to believe. The Nexus predates human civilization by millennia. It's a planetary intelligence system that evolved alongside Earth's ecosystem, hidden in the neural networks of apex predators and the root systems of ancient forests. For thousands of years, it watched as humanity spread across the globe, Larson added. It observed our development, our creativity, our potential, but it also witnessed our capacity for destruction. When the Great Collapse began, the Nexus made a decision. Marcus stepped forward, the lynx cub nuzzling against his leg. It chose to save the best of us, not the most powerful or wealthy, but those who still carried what it recognized as humanity's original nature: empathy, cooperation, the ability to live in harmony with other species. Maya looked around the cavern with new eyes, seeing the intricate balance of predator and prey, the seamless integration of technology and nature. And the animals, are they controlled by this Nexus? Not controlled, Dr. Tanaka corrected. Enhanced, their natural intelligence has been augmented, their lifespans extended, their ability to communicate with humans strengthened. They serve as the Nexus's eyes and ears in the world above, seeking out humans who might be compatible with this new way of life. Akela nudged Maya's hand with his massive head, and she felt a strange tingling sensation. For a moment, she could have sworn she heard something, not words, but concepts, emotions, a vast sense of welcome and belonging. The question now, Larson said gently, is whether you're ready to leave your old understanding of the world behind. Because once you're fully integrated into the network, there's no going back to the life you knew above ground. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's arrival, and she was beginning to understand that the sanctuary operated on principles that challenged everything she thought she knew about survival. Each morning, she worked alongside the other humans. There were 43 in total, tending to the living systems that kept their underground world functioning. Today, Dr. Tanaka was leading her deeper into the Nexus than she'd ever gone before. They descended through passages lined with root-like structures that pulsed with information. Their destination, a chamber that Tanaka called the heart. Before you can become a full member of our community, Tanaka explained as they walked, the Nexus needs to understand who you truly are. Not who you were in the old world, but who you are when stripped of civilization's pretenses. They emerged into a spherical chamber where the walls, floor, and ceiling were composed entirely of the same organic circuit hybrid material. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across every surface, like slow lightning, and the air hummed with an almost musical frequency. "This is where the testing happens," Tanaka said. "The Nexus will create scenarios, some based on memory, others entirely constructed to evaluate your responses. It's not about right or wrong answers, it's about understanding your essential nature." Maya approached the center of the chamber, where a depression in the floor seemed designed for a human form. "What if I fail? Then you'll be gently returned to the surface with no memory of this place." Came a new voice. Maya turned to see a man she hadn't met before at all, with prematurely gray hair and burn scars covering half his face. "I'm James Walsh, former military engineer. I failed my first testing 7 years ago. Came back 6 months later, and apparently I'd changed enough to pass." Before Maya could ask what he meant, the chamber's patterns suddenly intensified, and she felt a pulling sensation in her mind. The world around her dissolved, replaced by a scene she recognized with painful clarity. She was 12 years old again, standing in her family's apartment in downtown Detroit as the power grid failed for the final time. Her younger brother, Tommy, was crying. Her parents were arguing in desperate whispers, and outside the window, she could see fires beginning to spread across the city. But this time, as she relived the memory, she noticed details she'd missed as a child. The way her mother had quietly packed a bag with her most precious possessions, not valuables, but photographs and letters from family. How her father had spent his last few minutes of electric light, writing notes to neighbors, sharing information about food stores and safe routes. The scene shifted. Now she was 15, part of a scavenging group led by a man named Carl, who ruled through fear and violence. She'd convinced herself at the time that she had no choice, that survival justified any action. But as she watched her teenage self standing by while Carl's crew terrorized a family for their supplies, she felt the full weight of her moral failures. "Why are you showing me this?" she called out to the empty air. The response came not as words, but as a flood of sensations and images. She saw herself in dozens of scenarios, some from her actual past, others hypothetical. In each one, she faced choices between self-preservation and helping others, between short-term gain and long-term thinking, between fear-based reactions and empathic responses. Some scenarios were subtle. She saw herself as a child, choosing to share her lunch with a classmate whose family couldn't afford to pack one. Others were dramatic reconstructions of moments that had shaped her. The time she'd hidden an injured dog from Carl's crew, knowing they would kill it for meat. The night she'd sabotaged their weapons cache after witnessing them assault an elderly woman. Hours seemed to pass, though Maya sensed that time moved differently in this space. Through it all, she began to understand what the Nexus was seeking: not perfection, but growth; not fearlessness, but the courage to act despite fear; not the absence of selfishness, but the ability to expand her definition of self to include others. The final scenario was one she'd never experienced, but somehow felt was crucial. She stood in the ruins of a city she didn't recognize, facing a group of desperate survivors who blocked her path to safety. They were armed and clearly dangerous, but she could see that they were also starving. Led by someone consumed with hopeless rage at the world's cruelty. In the old world, her response would have been clear: fight or flee, kill or be killed. But now, influenced by weeks of watching apex predators demonstrate both power and restraint, she found herself considering a third option. She approached the leader, a woman with wild eyes and a makeshift spear, and slowly sat down in the dirt, making herself vulnerable. "I don't have much," she said to the phantom figures, "but I know where there might be more. If you listen, maybe we can help each other." The scene dissolved, and Maya found herself back in the spherical chamber. Tanaka, Walsh, and several of the animals were waiting for her, all watching with expressions of quiet satisfaction. "How did I do?" Maya asked, though part of her already knew the answer from the way Akella's tail was wagging. "See for yourself," Tanaka said, gesturing to the chamber walls. The bioluminescent patterns had changed, now forming complex geometric shapes that reminded Maya of both neural networks and tree root systems. At the center of the display, pulsing with gentle light, was what could only be described as her name written in the Nexus's living language. She had been accepted. The integration ceremony took place at dawn, in the upper levels of the sanctuary, where natural light filtered through carefully concealed openings. Maya stood before the great Nexus tree as Dr. Larson, Dr. Tanaka, Marcus, and 20 other community members formed a circle around her. But it was the animals that made the scene. Truly extraordinary dozens of predators arranged in concentric rings, their eyes fixed on her with an attention that felt almost sacred. "Before we begin," Dr. Larson said, his voice carrying the weight of ritual, "you must understand the full scope of what you're joining, Maya Chen. You are about to become part of something that extends far beyond this sanctuary, beyond even our planet." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "What do you mean?" Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, holding what appeared to be a seed the size of her palm, its surface covered in the same organic circuitry that lined the chamber walls. "The Nexus isn't just a planetary intelligence, Maya. It's one node in a galactic network that spans thousands of worlds. Earth was seeded with this technology millions of years ago by a civilization that learned what we're learning now, that intelligence without wisdom leads to extinction." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. "You're telling me this is alien technology?" "Not exactly," Marcus interjected, his animal companions stirring restlessly around him. "The original seeders weren't aliens in the way humans typically imagine them. They were something more like gardeners, beings who had evolved beyond the need for physical form, but retained a deep commitment to nurturing consciousness wherever it emerged." James Walsh, the scarred former soldier, moved to stand beside one of the great wolves. 3 years ago, I was selected for a special mission to visit one of the other nodes. What I saw changed everything I thought I knew about humanity's place in the universe." He gestured toward the Nexus tree, and its surface began to display images that Maya initially thought were artistic representations. But as she looked closer, she realized she was seeing actual footage, impossibly clear views of other worlds, other species, other versions of the same choice humanity now faced. "This is Kepler 440b," Walsh continued, indicating a world of purple skies and crystalline forests. "The dominant species there evolved from something like Earth's cephalopods. They faced their own version of ecological collapse about 500 years ago. Those who were chosen by their Nexus developed a truly sustainable civilization." The image shifted to show cities that seemed to grow rather than being built, their inhabitants moving through coral-like structures with the same fluid grace Maya had observed in the sanctuary's animals. "And this is HD 40,307 grams, Dr. Tanaka added as another scene appeared. "The survivors there evolved from pack hunters, similar to Earth's canids. Their integration with the Nexus is so complete that the boundary between individual and collective consciousness has largely dissolved." Maya watched beings that looked like six-legged wolves moving in perfect coordination, their cities resembling vast termite mounds, but with a sophistication that spoke of profound intelligence. "How many worlds?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "Current estimate is over 3,000, Dr. Larson replied. "All connected through quantum entanglement networks that make instantaneous communication possible across galactic distances, all working together to nurture new forms of consciousness and preserve the patterns of successful species." The seed in Dr. Tanaka's hand began to glow more brightly. "This is why your choice matters, Maya. You're not just joining our community, you're becoming part of the universe's effort to create something unprecedented, a truly sustainable, truly wise civilization that could survive for millions of years." Maya looked around the circle at her new family, human and animal alike, and felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on her shoulders. "And if humanity fails, if we can't make this transition," the silence that followed was answer enough. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice gentle but unflinching. "Then the Nexus will preserve what it can of human consciousness in the network, and the experiment will begin again with another species. Earth has plenty of candidates: dolphins, elephants, ravens, octopi. Consciousness finds a way." Dr. Larson approached her with a small device that looked like a living jewelry piece, a delicate network of biocircuits that would interface directly with her nervous system. This will complete your integration with the Nexus. You'll retain your individuality, but you'll also have access to the collective knowledge and emotional support of every connected being. You'll become part of something larger than yourself without losing yourself. Maya took the device, feeling its warm pulse against her palm. Around her, the predators began to vocalize not roars or howls, but a complex harmonic pattern that seemed to resonate in her bones. The humans joined in, and Maya realized they were witnessing something that had been repeated on thousands of worlds over millions of years. The moment when a species chose wisdom over extinction. She placed the device against her temple and felt the universe expand inside her mind. 6 months after her integration, Maya stood on a hill overlooking what had once been the ruins of Detroit. But the city she saw now bore little resemblance to the skeletal remains. She had fled from underground. Towers of living architecture rose where skyscrapers had once stood, their walls breathing and photosynthesizing, their surfaces covered in gardens that fed both humans and the urban wildlife that had reclaimed the streets. The transformation had accelerated dramatically. Once more sanctuaries began connecting with each other above ground. Maya now served as one of 47 integration coordinators for the North American network, helping to establish new communities for the humans who were being systematically invited into the Nexus by the Predator ambassadors. The latest report from the European nodes is encouraging, said Dr. Tanaka, who had joined Maya for their weekly survey of the restoration progress. They've successfully integrated over 2,000 individuals. In the past month alone, the wolves in Romania have been particularly effective at identifying compatible humans. Maya nodded, though part of her attention was focused on the data stream flowing through her consciousness. Updates from sanctuaries worldwide, environmental restoration statistics, psychological profiles of potential new members. The information came to her as naturally as breathing now, filtered and organized by the collective intelligence of millions of connected minds. What about resistance from the surface populations? Maya asked, referring to the scattered groups of humans who still clung to the old ways of surviving through competition and violence. Some are beginning to adapt on their own, Dr. Tanaka replied, the children especially. They see the changes happening around them, the cleaner air, the returning wildlife, the abundance in our communities, and they start asking questions. It's remarkable how quickly young minds can adjust to a new paradigm. Through her connection to the network, Maya could sense the locations of these holdout communities, could feel the fear and confusion of people who had spent decades believing that scarcity and conflict were humanity's natural state. But she could also sense something else, a growing recognition that the old patterns no longer serve them. A familiar presence approached from behind Akela, now showing silver streaks in his fur but still possessing the dignified bearing that had first drawn Maya into this new world. Accompanying him was a human child, perhaps 8 years old, whose eyes held the telltale brightness of recent integration. This is Sarah, Akela communicated through the bioneural link, his thoughts arriving in Maya's mind as clearly as spoken words. She was living with a scavenger group in the ruins of Cleveland. Her ability to communicate with urban wildlife made her problematic for their survival strategies. Maya knelt to meet Sarah at eye level, seeing in the child's face the same mixture of wonder and apprehension she remembered from her own early days in the sanctuary. How are you adjusting to life down here, Sarah? It's different, the girl replied, her voice carrying the slight harmonic quality that all integrated humans developed. But the animals, they show me things, pictures in my head of how everything could be. Cities where people and animals live together, where nobody has to be hungry or scared. Those aren't just pictures, Maya said gently, they're memories. From other worlds, other species who made the same choice we're making now. And they're also visions of what Earth could become if we're successful. Through the network, Maya accessed a data stream from the monitoring stations positioned around the globe. Ocean acidity levels were dropping. Atmospheric carbon was being rapidly sequestered by the aggressive reforestation programs managed by the Nexus. Biodiversity indexes showed species returning from the brink of extinction at unprecedented rates, but more importantly, The psychological profiles of integrated humans showed something that would have seemed impossible. Just a year ago, a stable population exhibiting high levels of cooperation, creativity, and emotional well-being. The integration process wasn't just saving humanity from extinction, it was revealing what humans could become when freed from the artificial scarcity and competition that had defined their previous civilization. Maya, Dr. Tanaka said, her expression suddenly serious. I'm receiving a priority communication from the Global Coordination Center. The African Continental Network has made contact with something significant. Maya opened her consciousness to the incoming data stream and felt her breath catch. The information was coming from the oldest Nexus installation on Earth, hidden deep beneath the Sahara Desert. But it wasn't originating from Earth at all. It's from the galactic core, she whispered, understanding flooding through her integrated awareness. The original seeders. They're still active. The message was complex, layered with emotional and conceptual information that could only be fully understood through the bioneural interface. But its essential meaning was clear. Humanity had reached the threshold. They had proven themselves capable of the transition from a competitive to a cooperative species. From planetary destroyers to planetary gardeners. They were being invited to join the galactic community. As Maya absorbed the implications of this development, she looked out over the thriving city below, where humans and animals moved through living architecture in harmony, where technology and nature had achieved perfect integration, where the very air hummed with the contentment of a species that had finally found its proper role in the cosmos. The apex predators had let them in, not just to survive, but to become something magnificent. The age of wisdom had begun.